Welcome to a Canadian Apprenticeship Forum live web event. My name is Sean Watson. Thank you for joining us today. Today you will learn about the recently launched Canada Apprentice Loan. Our guest presenter will provide information about the new program, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions. To do this, please type your question in the box on the webinar control panel, and I will pose it for you. Technical training, which in most cases is delivered in rotation with hours spent gaining on-the-job experience, requires apprentices to forego their paycheck for several weeks while they attend training at a post-secondary institution or union training center. The Canada Apprentice Loan gives Red Seal apprentices access to up to $4,000 per block of technical training as an interest-free loan. This money can be used to offset living and educational expenses. To expand on this and outline the finer points of the program, I would like to introduce Catherine Pescio, Manager of Policy Development with the Canada Student Loans Program at Employment and Social Development Canada. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi, thank you, Sean. And I'm very grateful to the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum for giving us the opportunity to present to you today what we familiarly call the CAL, the Canada Apprentice Loan. And so today I would like to give you a bit of the context behind this and behind the loan itself, and then go into some of the details regarding eligibility and repayment processes and so on. So starting with that context, so this was a budget announcement last year in the Economic Action Plan 2014. There was the announcement for the CAL, Canada Apprentice Loan, to assist the eligible apprentices with the costs of their technical training. And this is now being delivered by the Canada Student Loan Program because of our experience with dispersing loans and the repayment processes following those loans. As Sean has just explained, CAL provides those who are registered in Red Seal trades with interest-free loans for up to $4,000 per period of block release training. And these are interest-free. I'll get into the details of how that all works out later on in the presentation. But roughly generally until the apprentices complete or leave their training. And this for a period of maximum of 6 years. Our estimate is that CAL at cruising speed, I mean we're still ramping things up, would provide loans to approximately 26,000 apprentices a year, and we estimate at a cost of $100 million in loans. So that's not a cost because it's the loans are repaid, of course. The CAL was implemented this past January, on January 2nd, and to date we've already dispersed over 3,000 loans across the country. So why did we launch this loan process, when this loan opportunity initiative, when there's already other supports? Well, as some of you are probably aware, the completion rate for apprenticeship in Canada is persistently low at under 50%. And asking apprentices what are the reasons for some of these low completions that have come, at the top reasons that have come up have been the loss of wages while they're on the technical training, the fees associated with this, the expenses of tools and equipment, living expenses and relocation expenses and other consequences. So there are other federal measures to encourage apprenticeship completion and even just getting into apprenticeships, and CAL is there to complement these, which these are grants such as the Apprenticeship Incentive Grant, the Completion Grant. There's also the Tradesperson's Tool Deduction, and then the Tuition Tax Credit, and of course EI. These are and CAL as a loan is only there to complement these, not replace them. So how does it all work? To apply for CAL and be eligible, the applicant must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident or a recognized refugee or known protected person in the legal jargon. They must be registered in a Red Seal Trade Apprenticeship Program that's designated by their province or territory where they're registered. And then the loan is for the block release technical training. So they must be enrolled in an approved, with an approved technical training provider. Typically those colleges that are providing those training programs. And then if this is their first time applying for the loan, then they must pass a credit check. This is not an income-based loan. So the apprentice must simply meet those requirements and then can request a loan of between $500 to $4,000 per period of technical training for a maximum of 5 technical training periods. So there are some restrictions. So those who are not eligible for the loan are those who are still in high school. Those apprentices who have been restricted from receiving either a Canada Apprentice Loan or a Canada Student Loan. And restrictions can be things such as having been in default of those loans in the past, for example. An apprentice who's already received their maximum 5 periods of technical training or is in their 6th year of interest-free status on the loan would also not be eligible for a further loan. Apprentices in Quebec, because of the different setup for technical training for apprentices, are not eligible for CAL, and there are alternative supports in Quebec and also a federal payment to Quebec to compensate for the fact that they are not receiving the loan. So how does the application work? As I mentioned before, it's administered by the behind the scenes by the Canada Student Loan Program, and there is a service provider, the Canada Apprentice Loan online service, which actually manages applications, disbursements, the account management, and the repayment processing. Both online and paper applications are available through the Canada website. And the deadlines for applying are as early as 90 days before the apprentice will start their technical training and up till the last day of their enrollment in that technical training. So looking at this flow chart, there is the online application, which is what we encourage, but there is a paper backup. That then there is an identity verification. Looking at the social insurance registry and government-issued photo ID or copies of official documents. There's the credit check I mentioned earlier. Then there's a confirmation of enrollment that occurs to just confirm with direct, and this is the online service will confirm with the technical training provider that the applicant is actually enrolled, and then confirming the trade in which they are and the dates of that training. Disbursements are then made directly into the bank account. Here are some of the testimonials on this slide, and we're quite proud of the very fast turnaround of for these applications. Our aim was to make it in 2 weeks, and we're at 7 to 10 days. You see some cases here of 3 days as well. So it's a very fast application process. So you might have heard that this is interest-free loans, and what do we actually mean by that? So this is actually replicating the model of the Canada Student Loan System, by the way. And those are, so that I will only speak about the CALs at this time. But they are interest-free until the student has completed or left their apprenticeship training program. And as I said earlier, it's for up to a maximum of 6 years, because we're accounting for 5 periods of training. And then the interest actually only starts accruing 12 months after the apprentice has completed or left their program, or of course if they've reached that maximum of 6 years of interest-free status. So with those 5 years plus that 12 months makes for 6 years. And then that's when interest actually starts accruing after that time, but the first payment is only required 6 months from the day that the interest starts to accrue. The interest rate is typically the first one is chosen, but there is a choice for borrowers between a variable interest rate of prime plus 2.5% or a fixed is prime plus 5%, which is fixed, obviously. So there's also some repayment assistance for those applicants who might find it difficult to repay their loans once they are in repayment. So they can apply for the Repayment Assistance Plan, and there is a special variation on that plan for those who have a permanent disability. Repayment Assistance Plan, of course, so what we familiarly call this RAP, or RAP PDs for those who are have a permanent disability. Under this program, the applicant who has to apply for getting this assistance will have a payment that's reduced to what we call an affordable payment. And if that affordable payment is often found to be zero because their income is so low. And when I'm saying, of course, there are no CAL borrowers who are in repayment at this point. So I'm actually, when I'm saying, I'm using the case of what's happening with the Canada Student Loan System, because again, this is replicating a repayment assistance program that exists on with the Canada Student Loan. But anyway, those cases where so it's a reasonable payment, and the reasonable payment can actually be seen as calculated to zero, and it's based on family income and the size of the family. And of course, if the person is found to be on having a permanent disability, also their expenses related to that disability are included in their expenses and the assessment of what would be their reasonable payment. Another provision that exists is beyond the RAP, is for those who are actually prevented from participating in the labor force due to a permanent disability. They can apply for what we call the severe permanent disability benefit, which actually completely forgives the loan. Finally, we have a standard repayment period of 9.5 years, but that there can be a revision of terms in terms of the monthly payments, so it can be extended to a maximum of 14.5 years, which is another way of mitigating financial difficulties and difficulties with handling the repayment of the loan. So that was a very quick overview of the Canada Apprentice Loan, and I think that Sean has been receiving questions that you may have, and I'd be happy to answer these to the best of my capacity. And of course, if there's any that I can't, there will be some follow-up that we can do with the form to provide you with those answers.
We do have a number of questions for Catherine today, so I'll get started on those now. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. We have a question, a couple actually, in regard to whether or not applicants can switch trades and be eligible for loans. For example, if someone switches from a Red Seal designation of electrician to refrigeration, are they eligible for a second Canada Apprentice Loan, Catherine?
That's a very good question, which I haven't been asked before, and I don't see why not, because we've really kept this program as simple and to process, but I will follow up just to be completely sure and confirm that. But I don't see why, if they meet all the other requirements and they are still in a Red Seal loan, Red Seal apprenticeship program, why they wouldn't be. There, however, would likely be that same limit of 5 technical training programs. So there would, anyway, I will get back to you on that, because I think it's a very good and legitimate question.
Great. I'll provide the contact information for those that pose that question, and I'm sure they'll look forward to receiving the answer. The next question has to do with the why the eligibility is restricted to Red Seal trades. The question is, why was it not open to all trades designated by province or territory where the apprentice is training?
Right. Well, I mean, this is a federal program, and trying to keep the application as simple and easy to administer, and for verification purposes. I think that I can get back to you as to whether this is a first step or not, because of course there is a broader world of apprenticeship programs out there. So I can, again, follow up on that one.
Perfect. Okay, great. The next question I have is, you indicate apprentices in Quebec are not eligible.
Right.
This person is asking about Quebec residents that they have registered with Ontario Employment. Do they qualify?
I believe so. It is where they are registered, that and it's a program that's recognized in that province. So it is it's based on where it's delivered and where that person is registered as an apprentice.
Right.
So it's not on the residency of the applicant.
Okay, great. The next question I have is, what is the process to confirm whether an apprentice is continuing and is not subject to repayment based on leaving their program?
So the way that it works is that once the so I'll give an example. Say you're taking a technical training that ends, say, March 31st of 2015. The system is aware of that because that's part of the application process. That's your end date. As we approach month 12 of the, as we approach the 12-month mark, so March 31st, 2016, on month 11, sometime in early March, maybe in February, there'll be a request to the borrower whether they are still registered, and if there's no answer, then it's the assumption is that you are no longer registered in the program, and then you will get into repayment on March 31st, 2016. Of course, that's annulled if there's a re-registration into a new technical training program. The other way is if the borrower answers positively, says, yes, I continue to be registered, then there'll be a verification with the province that they are indeed still registered in that Red Seal program.
Okay,
Does that
great.
answer the question?
I think so, yeah. Thank you very much, Catherine. Next question I have is around the interest rate. If an apprentice chooses a fixed interest rate of prime plus 5%, this is based on prime when they took the loan or when they start repayment?
It's when they start repayment. So it's at the time of, there's kind of a, again, this is all still hypothetical because nobody has actually gone into repayment, but because we're very much going to be replicating as sensibly as it can be the system with the Canada Student Loan Program. There's a stage called consolidation when people go into repayment at that when the interest comes into play, and then and when you go into repayment, there's that consolidation, and it's then that the interest rate is chosen, the confirmation of the actual monthly payments schedule is made, and so on. So the interest rate is at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have a question about whether or not the loan is available for co-op apprenticeships. She's hearing you refer only to block release programs.
Yes, and it is to those block release programs. It is that's what's being defined at this stage. There may be other, if it's a longer period of training, they might actually be eligible for a Canada Student Loan funding in that time.
Okay, great. Next question is, how do you know when an apprentice stops going to school? For example, if they stop halfway through their program.
Right. That's really we're not actually keeping tabs on people. So the loan is really I would go back to that example that I provided at the earlier about that checking at the 1-year mark whether they are continue to be registered, and if it's a no answer, then it's just that they are no longer registered, and then the repayment begin that 12 then the period of interest beginning will start, and the interest beginning to accrue will begin at that point. So it's really just that 1 year well, it's not necessarily 1 year, it's more kind of 11 months after. It's that reaching out to the borrower and asking them what is their status.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question is, are Aboriginal apprentices eligible to receive the Canada Apprentice Loan?
Absolutely. There's no, it's offered to, the eligibility requirements are, as I put forward at the beginning, Canadian citizen, permanent resident, protected person. It's this complements any existing programs that are already out there.
Right, great. Okay, next question. What tools are in place to make the paperwork process easier for apprentices?
I'm not sure I understand that question. If is that kind of in contrast to the online, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Certainly, we've many efforts have been made to make this, and this is one of our. I think we're priding ourselves on having an extremely simple process. For application is really the keeping it down to the essentials of what's required. The fact that we don't make a needs assessment and simplifies it greatly in contrast to the Canada Student Loan Program, where just assessing resources versus costs is probably the most complicated part of the whole process. The the online application is something we encourage because it does speed things up so much. The paper application is available online and can be sent in, mailed in, of course. And the person can follow up with more if I haven't answered the question.
Absolutely, yes. And anyone who has further questions can always follow up with us via email afterwards, and we'll get in touch with you, Catherine, on those. I do have a question about the loan maximum and how you arrived at that number.
It was kind of looking at what at somewhat of again comparative to the Canada Student Loan and I mean taking into account expenses like living expenses versus tuition, that kind of calculation. I can provide a more fulsome response and as a follow-up, if you wish. Yeah.
Perfect. The next one I have is, do you do confirmation of enrollment for each period or just in the beginning, initial registration?
At every one of those 5 technical training, yes, there would be a verification of enrollment.
Okay, great. Okay, of the current loan out, what was the failure rate due to credit difficulties?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. Of the current loan out, or so I guess of the current money that's been distributed, what was the failure rate due to credit difficulties? I guess were there applications that were rejected?
As a failed credit check?
Right.
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
But it's something I can probably find out.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll follow up on that one afterwards as well. Let's see. Lots of people are asking if the presentation is going to be available afterwards. So I'll say to everyone at once, yes, it will be, and we will circulate that within the next day or two. And then I have another question for you, which is, what is the definition of a registered apprentice? If there is a 1 to 2 year gap between attending level 1 and 2, is it still an interest-free loan?
Right, and yes, I guess it's, let's go back to my example. There's a way of kind of returning back. So let's go back to my example that the person, their last date of being in class, was in training, in block release training, was March 31st, 2015. So the interest begins to accrue in March 31st, 2016. 6 months from then, they will be required to start payment. If before, and I haven't thought of my example enough, March plus 6 is September, right?
Yeah.
So September, at the end of September, they would start having to pay. So this is September 2016.
Right.
If they actually register into a new program before then there is any accrued interest would be removed.
Okay.
And so they keep on that interest-free status. It can be extended. So you can kind of go for 18 months from end of training to the next training.
Okay, good.
If you had a longer interruption, you'd start paying interest, and then when you got back on a new CAL for a second one, then their payments would be suspended.
Okay. All right, great. Another question, Catherine, is there any future plan of including non-red seal trades?
I think that goes with my earlier question. I'll follow up on.
Okay.
That was the first question. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And let's see. is all confirmation of enrollment or continued enrollment done with the training providers? Will the provincial government or apprentices offices be consulted?
So to confirm the enrollment, that's done directly with the technical training providers.
Okay.
It's at a year later that registration is confirmed
With the apprentice?
With the apprentice provincial bodies, yeah.
Okay. Can an apprentice apply only once per year? For example, if they do 2 technical trainings in 1 year, can they apply again?
That's a good question. I'd rather not venture into that, so
Right.
I'll get back to you.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting scenario.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm sure we've thought about it, but I don't want to
say the wrong thing.
Right answer.
Sure. Okay. And then I have someone asking, is the loan available for day release in school training?
Again, that's a kind of level of detail I'd like to check before I have an idea, but I'd rather
verify? Yeah, that's
yeah.
great. Who informs the apprentices of this initiative? Will they be sent correspondence informing them about the Canada Apprentice Loan?
So there's a lot of promotion going on at this stage. Direct communication with apprentices, I don't believe is in the cards. I mean, there's advertisement on television. There's been a lot of political announcements with. I mean, politicians have done a lot of outreach as well. There's been outreach with the technical training providers. A pamphlet is available for distribution as well. And Colleague Service Canada, you can get access to that if you want some pamphlets to distribute. So there's, and I'm probably missing some aspects of the communication campaign that's dealt with another part of the department. If somebody wants more information about that, I can find out more of the full picture on that.
Perfect. Yeah, and I will remind everyone that your contact information is in the slide presentation for follow-up, but I will facilitate what I can there as well. Just a couple more questions about how you contact the apprentice to confirm their participation in the program. Do you do this by email, by telephone, by mail?
We try as most as possible to establish an email contact. You know, again, that's the kind of the ease of the online application. But whatever is established as the communication at the beginning of the application process would be followed up. Would be followed up. That method of communication.
Great. And I think what I have now is the final question, and it's a clarification from an earlier one about the complexities of the paperwork that is required. Yeah. They're wondering if they can get a copy of the application. Unless someone's registering, they don't actually get to see it. Is that something that's possible?
Right. I'll look into that. I'm sorry, we were working more on, I'm less on the implementation side of things, so I don't know that operational detail, but we can follow up.
Okay, great. We've got a log of all the questions and answers here, so we'll definitely be following up with a few people on their queries. So that's great. I'm going to say that's all for our question period now. Thank you again, Catherine, for joining us today. And I'd like to let everyone know that next up in our webinar series on April 22nd, we will explore how employers value certification in the skilled trades. The Canadian Apprenticeship Forum will share insights from a survey of over 500 employers around the topic of hiring practices and the value placed on trade certification and skills development. In May, we will be traveling to Saskatoon for a regional roundtable event and sharing of best practices on youth engagement in apprenticeship and skilled trades careers. Watch our monthly newsletters and website for more information on this program as it develops. Again, we will send out the recording of today's webinar and the presentation slides to all of you later on in the week. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.